Let's do family dinner night tonight. This is a pork chop sous vide. I've already got the sous vide going over in the corner there, but I want to show you how I prep my meat in order to do this. So I don't do a lot of planning in advance. When I make a meal, I just kind of get what is on sale. So we've got this on special here. It says it's fine for the barbecue. We've got a pork shoulder blade steak. Any pork chop would work. I'm learning how to sous vide. I haven't done it very much because I find given I have my oven going all the time, I just tend to use the heat from my oven for many different things. But when it comes to pork chops, I find pork chops can be really tough. There's so much flavor in them, and they should be a really good meat. But when they're not done right, they just aren't that awesome. So what we're gonna do is sous vide, and then we're gonna just finish them off on the barbecue or maybe in a heavy cast iron pan, depending on how I'm feeling right now. So let's just show you what I'm gonna do with these because it is quite a nice option. So simply, I'm gonna take some salt and pepper, and I'm just gonna sprinkle it on there. I like pepper a lot, so I would encourage you to try not to follow recipes precisely and to start going by taste. It really is helpful. I've got some kosher salt here. I'm gonna sprinkle that on as well. This is gonna get our seasoning going. So one of the things people do wrong, the most that I see, is they under-season their meats or anything really. This is one of my homemade spices. It is actually my steak spice, but I put it on so many things. There's dill in here, there's coriander in here, salt, pepper, garlic, so good. It goes well with everything. We're gonna throw a little grainy mustard. I love grainy mustard, and I think grainy mustard goes really well with pork. And then we'll go ahead and put on a little bit of olive oil as well. I try to keep my fingers clean for this initial first half before I put it into the bag. So I'm just gonna use the spoon from my mustard now that I'm done with that. And I'm just gonna kind of rub everything around here just to kind of get it going. And there we are. So, and then I'm just gonna use a tongs to pick it up. And I'm gonna go like this before, I'm keeping it in the package because I'm trying to keep as much mess contained as I possibly can. I do try to be the least amount of mess of a cook as possible. That is always my goal. So I'm flipping it over so that all the extras is kind of getting landed on each side before I season the other side. And I do always season both sides. So not quite as heavy on this side because we did a fair amount on the other side. I find with pork chops, if you're thinking about a level of salt that you want in it, you're probably looking at about, in total, just a little under half a teaspoon per, half to 3/4 teaspoon for both of these total. That's really, if I'm measuring, that's what I'm gonna get. And when it comes to this steak spice, you can just really put on as much as you want. There is a little more salt and pepper in here, so keep that in mind. And there's a little cayenne as well, which does give a little bit of heat. But that is amazing. I will do it just a tiny, actually I'm not gonna even bother with more oil because we had it on the other side. We've got enough in here for now. And we'll just start putting it into the bag. I would be using my fingers right now, except for I have to worry about a camera, so I don't want to do that. Let's get our sous vide bag. This here is a vacuum seal bag. I've got it right here. This is the make your own size, so I could fit a lot more than 2 in here because I made it really big. I have in my sous vide right now, I have 3 in each. I always batch cook, so I'm thinking I don't need all this many, but I knew it was on sale, so I'm like, let's go for it and do that. So yeah, here we go. So let's get these into our bag, and we're gonna go ahead and put our seasoning on top, a little extra seasoning. So when it comes to doing a sous vide like this, what you really want to do is you're bringing in flavor. So I've got some onion here. You could use shallot, whatever onion you have. I tend to just buy a big bag of onion, whatever is on sale. They all taste kind of the same. Onions, you've got sweet onions, you've got regular onions, you've got red onion, you've got white onion. Yes, they're good for certain different things. White, you're gonna use more when you want that white color, like in a pico de gallo. Red, if you want to have the red. Yes, there's some subtle nuances and flavors, but if you've got onion, and maybe you've got onion in the fridge half cut up from something else, go ahead and use it at this point. So I'm gonna throw this right on top of my sous vide here. Throw it right on top of the bag. And it's gonna be a very subtle flavor as it cooks over the long term. I'm gonna grab a clove of garlic and just sort of hack that up on the, just really, really messily. So I'm just gonna cut off the end, give it a whack, open it up, keep your little garbage container here. Put all your garbage in that as you're going. It will save you so much hassle in the long run. Give it a nice little chop. Watch your fingers. I just sharpened my knife, and every time I sharpen my knife, I tend to be ready to cut myself, unfortunately. So we'll just hack that in there. And if you get a little bits of the peel, don't worry about it. Not a problem. Throw that inside. I've also got here, while I was out, they had rosemary plants on sale. I haven't got all my herbs planted yet. And so I was just gonna grab this for now, pop it inside here, and I'll plant this outside. This was $3.89. So versus that little packet at the store, you're gonna keep this one growing, which is awesome. So that's gonna go in there. I had some mint in my garden. Any herb will do. Thyme, you could do tarragon. Tarragon I find goes really well with poultry, but also good with fish. Fresh herbs are subtle, but they add just a really nice flavor into the meat as it is slow cooking in the sous vide. Some chives here, that's gonna be awesome. That's all I'm gonna do for now. We're gonna go ahead and pop that into our sealer here. This is so simple and easy to do. Let's see if we can give you the top view of this. You can just watch all of that. Watch this suck up. Wait for it, wait for it, wait for it. All right, almost releasing. There we go. So now this is ready to go. If you were not ready to, maybe you're doing a batch prep day of prepping your food for the week, and you just want to get it to this point and go ahead and put it in the freezer, go ahead and do that. Then you can pull it out of the freezer the night before, pop it in your refrigerator, and you can get it into the sous vide whenever you're ready to do that. So for now with this one, I actually have enough going right there. I'm gonna put this one into the freezer for now, but it's ready to go when I need it. So this is gonna be great. What we're gonna do now is I'm just gonna let this finish up over here. I'm gonna go for about 4 hours and we'll see how that works. Like I said, I'm not a professional sous vide person. I will keep informing you of my thoughts and process as we go. But what I'm gonna do now is think about our sides. When I'm at a grocery store, I do tend to look for things that I'm gonna want to add to the meal. Cabbage goes great, in my opinion, with pork. I bought a nice red cabbage. It was on sale for like $1.98 a pound, I think. So we'll do something with that. I'm not sure what yet. I'm thinking kind of a like balsamic vinegar kind of braise. We'll see how that goes. They also had some apples, some local Okanagan apples. This is kind of going to be the last before our new season. So apple and pork chop always goes well together. I will likely just slice those up and saute them down into making like a kind of a rough applesauce. And I always keep a big bag of potatoes on hand for such a time as a family meal. So I'm just gonna cut these in half and get them into some water, and then I'll let them dry, and we'll bake them just about an hour before we have company coming, get them nice and crispy. And then I'm gonna be doing a side of a pea and brassica salad. So stay tuned for that, and we'll bring it all back and bring it together. Okay, got our potato prep going here. Just so you know my values around food, I love to cook as much as I can from scratch. I do love to support local, but I have to be realistic as what I can fit into my life as far as grocery shopping, picking things up, or even just planning meals. I have a busy life with my daughter in a lot of sports, myself with work, and just trying to have a life at this stage in my life. So I do get a lot of my shopping from Costco because I can buy it in bulk and I can make big meals that I can reinvent into leftovers for the whole week. So with this, I have potatoes that I bought a few weeks ago. Of course, when there are local potatoes, I will absolutely go get them. If I'm out and about, I will look for what is fresh. But you gotta, first of all, I would much rather make a meal from scratch than I would be worrying about sourcing everything perfectly, because otherwise you're gonna end up not being able to fit it all in, and then you'll end up at like a fast food place, and that's not what I want to do. With my potatoes here, I always take a peek at size. I want them to all be roughly about the same size. So if they're big, I cut them in half. If they're small, I leave them. Sometimes I cut the small ones in half too, because you'll get a little difference in cooking. Any little bits of root, just rip those off. What I'm going to do now is take this and get it with lots of cold water, rinse it a few times, and then I have these flour sack towels, which I will then let the potatoes drain and pop them in my refrigerator with the towel around it, so that makes some of the starches come out. It'll make for a crispier potato when you actually go to bake them. So let's go do that now, and I'll come back with the next step. All right, we're gonna do a quick salad here. So if I am in a pinch, and this family meal was kind of, my kids asked me to do it a day early, so I was a little bit sprung on me. So when that happens, I do turn to the good old frozen veggies, and believe it or not, you can make a great salad out of frozen veggies. Right on this one here now, I've got some peas. I'm just gonna do all of them because, frankly, if whatever is left over becomes something else, and that'll help me for the rest of my week. Now that I see my list is empty, I'm gonna go right into my grocery list, and I'm gonna add frozen peas onto my grocery list because I like to have them in my freezer at all times. So there we go with that. That's part of it. So I'm gonna let this just sit with, I'll put a plate on top of it, and that's just gonna sit and defrost. Next, this is where this gets super creative. I buy this big bag of vegetables from Costco, and no, I'm not like exactly like super proud of having this on hand, but you know what? When my family dinner gets sprung on me, I can go ahead and make something amazing, and you can too. So I'm just gonna be pulling out of this one here, just the cauliflower and the broccoli. It's looking like it's more broccoli in here than cauliflower, but this will become just a nice, I'm telling you, it's gonna be a really, really good salad. So pulling this out here, and then we're gonna let it defrost for a couple of hours. In the meantime, I'm gonna make a nice tahini dressing. We're gonna just do lemon juice, tahini, some garlic, a little bit of maple syrup or honey, whatever I'm feeling like, whatever I kind of have close at hand. And that's gonna become part of this salad. I made this salad the other day, and honestly, it was fantastic. And I love if someone says, hey, you know, want to come for dinner? Can you bring a salad? I can say yes, and I don't have to run off to the grocery store because I have food like this on hand. That will probably be enough. Maybe I'll throw a few more in here if I can dig out some cauliflower, and then I'll have enough for lunch probably tomorrow as well. So there we go with that. Let's just put this back into the freezer. I love this vegetable mix. Everything in it is really good. You can steam it, you can roast it, and you have veggies that are fresh quickly. So I'll just let these sit over here and defrost as well. Let's get over to our tahini dressing. I am not a very good recipe follower. So what I tend to do is think about what I'm looking for and the flavors that I want, and then I just start going with it, and I'll taste as I go. While I had the mess out of here from earlier for prepping the meat, I've got my salt and my pepper here. I've got a little bit of water actually here I can add to the dressing. I've got my Dijon mustard still out, so we'll just use what we have to bring this dressing together. So tahini is a little bit on the bitter side, but it does provide a really nice base for making a salad. I'm not going to make a ton of it, so I've got basically probably about a tablespoon of tahini here, and I'm going to add about the same amount here in olive oil. That's going to help just to thin it out. We're going to add about half of that in Dijon. Actually probably just about a teaspoon of Dijon, grainy mustard. Dijon works great as well, but I'm getting that messed up. We're going to add some salt and pepper, and we'll taste that if we need to. I do usually like to have fresh ground pepper, but today I'm just feeling like being lazy. Speaking of lazy, look at this. I did not have any lemon juice. This is not something I'm super proud of having in the kitchen, but you know what, works in the pinch. I usually do keep, I'm putting about 1.5 teaspoons into this mixture. I usually do keep an organic mixture of lemon juice, but that is what I happen to have in the pantry from Costco, and it is what it is. Sometimes you just gotta go with what you gotta go with. I don't have my maple syrup really right handy right now, so I'll just add that in a couple of minutes. I'm gonna simply whisk this together and I will taste it in a second. I'm gonna likely add a little bit of cayenne pepper or red chili flakes into this as well because I love that flavor. And just kind of whisk it up here. If you don't really like it sweet, don't worry about adding any of the maple syrup or anything like that, but it does tend to balance it out. Just gonna stick my finger in there, do a little taste test. Actually tastes pretty good. Pretty good. I'm gonna add just a touch more lemon. And that's the thing is, guys, you got to go with the flavors that you like. So do that first. I'm going to add a little bit more salt because I am going to add a bit of maple syrup, and the salt and the sweet will go really, really well together. A little more pepper. And I think I will just thin it just a touch with water, about a teaspoon. There we go. Just to give me a nice pourable consistency. There we go. Taste that. I'm going to whisk in about a teaspoon to 2 teaspoons of maple syrup. Put it into this little squeezy because it just makes for easier application later when you're pouring it over top of vegetables. And then we'll wait for these vegetables to chill out and we'll bring it all together. If you want to add some fresh veggies to the salad as well, or even just a little bit of fresh shallot and garlic, go ahead and do that. I love fresh shallot in salads, but I'm not a big fan of fresh garlic in salads. I find it just sticks with me too long. I like garlic to be cooked into the meal. So that's my personal preference. I know everybody's different. My daughter's boyfriend, Liam, he's like, the more garlic, the better. My kids are like, I like the way you do it, Mom. Of course they do, because that's how I've always done it, and that's what they know. But you gotta do what you love. So if you like a little bit extra garlic, you can always add it. I'm gonna omit it from this particular salad. We'll bring it back together here in a few. All right, let's move on to the next side. So we've got our red cabbage here. I've just cut it in half, and I'm just gonna start cutting this into kind of slices like this. And we'll see how they come apart. That's the thing about cabbages. Sometimes it kind of just sort of falls apart and sometimes it doesn't. I'm going to rinse it in water. I'm just gonna leave it in big chunks. Ones like this, I'll just kind of chop them down because I don't want them in massive chunks. So we'll just keep going like that. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to simply rinse this in water and really cold, and then put it into a sieve and just let it chill out. We'll then bring it together into a sheet pan. I'm going to put some parchment paper down just to make the whole thing come together with the least amount of mess. After that, we're going to want to enhance the flavors that match with our pork chops. So we're gonna sprinkle some salt and pepper and some of my steak spice along with some olive oil. We're gonna put that into a nice hot oven about the last 30 minutes with the potatoes. We're gonna let it get kind of nice and braised and burnished. Pull it out about 10 minutes before you want to serve. Drizzle it with some balsamic vinegar, maybe a little bit of red chili flakes or cayenne pepper, whatever you like. And we'll finish it off in the oven like that right before we plate it. So all I'm gonna finish doing now here is slicing up this cabbage and then rinsing it off. So go ahead and do that, and we'll meet you back here to put it into the oven. It's about an hour until dinner time, so I'm gonna start my potatoes. I've got my oven nicely preheated to about 475 degrees. I like a hot oven for potatoes. I am putting parchment paper down just because I'm being lazy. If I was feeling particularly adventurous, I would use a cast iron pan, or if I was making a smaller batch, or my big Le Creuset or my stoneware, and then just put it in there. But if I'm feeling kind of lazy, parchment paper is gonna do it. My potatoes have been resting in the refrigerator, getting nice and dry after being washed. And I'm just gonna, actually, I'm gonna put it in here so I've got a nice clean pan. I don't really have to do too much to clean this. And I'll do the olive oil right on top of this. So I'm only putting about probably a tablespoon and a half of olive oil. And I'm going to go ahead and add a little pepper at this point, but I'm not gonna add the salt. Salt draws out moisture, so it'll tend to make your cooking a little more soggy versus crispy. Now with my fingers, we'll get in here, give it a nice tossing. And if you want to have a nice sort of crispy bottom, you kind of want to place all the ones that have that are cut open down. Just place them down, and then you put it in the hot oven and you'll flip it at about the 30-minute mark, and that will help them to crisp up. So that's just a little tip for you. And when your hands are dirty, once go ahead and just keep going with that. So at this point, what I also can do is prepare my, while I have dirty fingers, I can prepare my red cabbage. Okay, so we've got our red cabbage here. I'm just gonna put it into the pan. It has been draining in the strainer. There's still a little bit of water in it. That's no big deal. And I'm just gonna go ahead and throw a little olive oil on here. Ooh, that's a little more than I wanted. And again, a little bit of black pepper. And I don't mind putting a little bit of salt in with this one at the moment because I'm not worrying about it being too crispy. And then we'll add in that steak spice as well. Steak spice is maybe a bad name for this spice because I use it on so many things. Now I'm just gonna get in there with my fingers and just give it a little massaging, bring that oil through. And I will put this onto a prepared baking sheet right before it goes in the oven in about 30 minutes. But this is gonna be really good and ready to go. And after that, all I have to do is grill my steaks or sear them, my pork steaks, and then bring these couple of things together. So that's going to be awesome. You can taste it. Add more seasoning if desired. I'll bake that up in about 30 minutes. Oven time. Let's bring the rest of this together. Let's bring our spring salad together, our peas and brassica, and then we'll also deal with this cabbage. But in the meantime, I'm just gonna chop up a little bit of shallot to go into the salad. I'm gonna go with shallot versus feta today. I've just kind of done little julienne slices here. Just little tiny juliennes, and I'll come in on the side. My knife is super sharp, so I'm gonna be extra cautious. And just go in here, kind of bring those knuckles in a little bit. And I'm keeping this as a pretty fine dice. So this is a very small salad, so I'm not making a very big amount of shallot here. If you're doing more, of course, you can add more or less based on your own personal preference. So there's our shallot. I have also here the peas and the broccoli and cauliflower just draining in a pan to get all the extra moisture out. I want to use as least amount of dishes as possible, so I have my tossed red cabbage here. I'll put that onto a prepared baking sheet. This is a little smaller than I would like, but it's going to shrink up quite a bit, so I'm not too concerned about it. And then we'll use the leftover mess in here to mix our salad. This is going to go in the oven in about 30 minutes. Push that to the side, and let's bring our salad here together. So we've got our veggies, our peas, and our broccoli and cauliflower. We're going to add in those shallots, just like that. Perfect. My family does love a little red onion or shallot. We're gonna add a tiny bit of chili flakes. I tend to do too much, but I'll just put this on the table so that I can use it as I want when I'm eating. And then we've got our dressing here, that tahini dressing. I like it in a squeezy because I feel like you can add as much as you want. And you can always put this on the table if somebody wants more. Of course, it'd be nice if it was prettier, but it is what it is. So get in here, give it a nice tossing. This can be really light, or you can sauce it up, kind of like almost like a Caesar salad. You sauce it how you like, as much or as little as you want. Give it a good tossing. Bring it together. We'll put it into a nicer serving dish because I still do like to have a nice served meal for family dinner, even if it's casual. Give it a little taste. So good. Tiny bit more salt. Tiny bit more pepper. We'll put it in a serving dish. Top it with feta if you want to, but this is what I'm going to be doing and be ready to go. You can serve this a little bit room temperature if you want to. You could even serve it warm. Your call, depending on what your family likes. Our sous vide is done. We've got them placed into a bowl here. Simple way of just opening up the bag. Just simple, simple, simple. Get your fingers a little bit dirty. Get your steaks off to the side, ready for grilling or searing, whatever your preference is. And all the goodness inside is going to become our sauce. So simply put that into a nice bowl. You can strain out the chunks. And voila, let's get going. Well, our meal is done. I have a beautiful sauce that is in the other room already at the table. Kids are here. I just want to show it to you quickly so that you know how it turned out. We've got our sous vide pork chops and just lightly grilled on the barbecue. I did a sautéed apple with a little bit of cinnamon and maple syrup just for a nice little sweetness. And then we have our roasted potatoes, which I just put a little extra salt and pepper on a few minutes ago, just at the end, and the same here with our braised cabbage. The salad is already on the table, our spring salad, so I'm just gonna plate this and we're gonna enjoy. I hope you try it out because it's a good one for family dinner.